There is a moment in life when everything falls silent, not because the world stops, but because your soul can no longer endure the noise of lies. You stand in a familiar room with the same faces, the same smiles, yet suddenly everything feels terrifyingly strange. It is not that they changed, it is your eyes opening. Every word, every gesture, every expression becomes naked. You realize that for years, you were not mad. You were just living among people who needed you to believe you were, so they could feel safe. That phrase slices open the fog. The most terrifying thing about awakening is realizing you were never crazy, just surrounded by people who needed you to be. And the moment you see it, silence spreads within you like wind over water. You no longer wish to justify, no longer wish to prove. You just stay quiet, watch the world flow past, strangely peaceful inside. Perhaps this is the true beginning of awakening, not when you find the light, but when you accept that you are the light. You used to believe happiness came from outside, a praise, a hug, an opportunity, a person. But when all these depart, you see, everything you ever sought was already within, just waiting to be remembered. And tonight, not tomorrow, not when everything is perfect, but right now, in an ordinary breath, something is stirring. Something irreversible. A sacred memory awakens in your heart. Let it spread. Do not resist. Because awakening has never been gentle. It is the process of illusions dissolving. It is the crack of the old shell, where the person you once were gives way to your soul's true life. You may feel exhausted, lost, as though you are dissolving. But this is the signal. When the caterpillar stops crawling, it begins to become a butterfly. When light floods darkness, darkness panics and struggles. And you, the chosen one, are inside that transformation. You feel yourself changing, no longer reacting as before, no longer interested in meaningless chatter, no longer tolerating fake energy. You are quieter, but not from fear, but because there is nothing left to say. Your energy now speaks for you. Your eyes make others bow, not from power, but because truth shines through them. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. John 8:32. Truth needs no defense. It only needs to be seen. And when you begin to live honestly with yourself, the world around you also begins to reveal itself. Someone who once smiled at you now sends shivers down your spine. A relationship you once thought was destiny now feels empty. Not because they changed, they simply no longer reflect your frequency. You have left their stage, and in their eyes, you become the stranger. But you know clearly this is the first sign of freedom. Awakening is when you stop seeking approval. When you accept that, not everyone will understand, and there's no need to. Because your mission was never to make others comfortable, but to make them real. And truth sometimes scares people. You are a mirror, but not a flat mirror, reflecting painted faces. You are a burning mirror. All illusions before you melt like wax by a candle. When you enter a room, the air shifts. Some people begin to speak more. Some avoid your gaze. Others try to bring you down with sarcasm. But deep inside, you understand. They're not resisting you. They fight the part of truth you force them to look at. No one fears judgment by words. They fear being seen by light. Awakening brings solitude. Not loneliness because no one is there, but because no one is true enough to touch you anymore. But let that solitude wrap around you like armor, because in silence, you hear your soul's voice clearest. That voice whispers like wind, but decisive. Do not fear. This is preparation. You begin to sense energy moving at gentle vibration in the heart, a warmth rising from throat to brow. Your body is restructuring to hold more light. You cannot go back. You cannot pretend as before. You cannot perform the old role in the old story. You have seen, and once seen, you cannot unsee. For our God is a consuming fire. Hebrews 12:29. The light of God is not something you beg for. It is the fire that burns away the unreal. And tonight, that fire stirs within you. You feel it as millions of memory fragments touch one another, igniting. Each wound, each betrayal, each collapse now becomes fuel for that light. Nothing is meaningless, no pain wasted, all arranged to bring you to this moment. You look back on your journey and see clearly. Every loss was not punishment, but purification. Each person who left was the universe clearing a path for you to ascend. And now, you are ready. The old world begins to tremble. The souls who once touched you, who tried to extinguish your light, will begin to feel something they cannot name it, but they will sense it, because your frequency has shifted. And when you shift, the world around you must shift too. This is no longer an emotional game. This is the rebirth of the soul. You no longer search for answers, because you are the answer. No longer ask why it hurts, because you know every wound is God's invitation. Tonight, as you close your eyes, you will not see darkness, but millions of tiny sparks. They are fragments of soul memories coming home to each other. You are not breaking, you are merging. And when you open your eyes again, the world will be the same, but your gaze is different. You no longer mirror them. You burn them with your own light. Do not fear, because truth never arrives to destroy, it comes to purify. All that is fake will fall away like old leaves, and from the ashes you will rise, as one who was dead and is born again. Rise with wide eyes, heart ablaze, soul radiant like the first flame. You are being called, and that call will lead you to what is next, where the flame in you begins to touch the world, and all that was hidden begins to reveal. There are nights when you lie still, eyes open, staring at the ceiling, no longer certain of who you are. Not because you are lost, but because everything that once felt familiar now seems too small, no longer a fit. A strange energy stirs in your heart. It's not loud or dazzling, just a quiet warmth spreading through your veins, your breath, and into your awareness. You don't know where it comes from. You only know it's real, a truth beyond words. The world keeps spinning as usual. People still talk, laugh, compete, and play their well-rehearsed roles. But you can no longer take part. Every forced smile, every polite lie sounds like clashing metal, cold and hollow. You begin to see what others refuse to see, the emptiness behind those pleasant faces. And that realization makes you both powerful and alone. You feel their gaze. Those who once felt at ease when you bowed your head are now unsettled when you lift it. You say nothing, but your silence disturbs them, because you are no longer the comforting mirror reflecting the image they want. You've become the fire within the mirror where everything false begins to melt as soon as the light touches it. You're not trying to hurt anyone. You're simply present. But your presence itself is truth. And truth, by nature, is not gentle. It strips away the pretending, the roles hidden behind polite words. You stand there like a burning mirror. Your light makes them shiver, not because they hate you, but because they can no longer hide from themselves. An old figure reappears, knocking on the door of your life with a few words of concern. A short message, a familiar voice, but behind it, you hear clearly what they don't say. I just want to see if your fire is still burning. And you smile. No more anger, no more longing, only peace. Because you know, those who once left no longer have the power to touch you. You've moved beyond the need to be seen. Now, you only need to be. The world begins to react. One person suddenly changes their tone, another becomes cautious. What seemed random now feels orchestrated to test you. Will you react or stay silent? Will you shrink or stand firm in your light? Every moment, every word, every glance becomes a subtle test. Do you dare stay in truth? You choose silence, not from fear, but because you've learned. Reacting is how darkness pulls you back. Stillness is how light wins. And in that stillness, you hear something, not a voice, but a sense, as if something inside you is saying, let the light do its work. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1-5. The fire within you is not here to destroy, but to purify. It burns away what is not real, even within yourself. Every memory, every wound, every time you lowered your head out of fear of losing someone, now thrown into the fire. And as they burn, they don't disappear. They turn into light. You begin to understand. Everything was necessary. No one was wrong. Every lesson came in the shape of a person. Your body responds. At times you feel tired, warm, like an electric current running through your chest. But no, you're not sick. You're being purified. You're becoming transparent, like a lamp with no smoke. The people around you can feel it, even if they don't understand. Some try to cling to you for balance. Others back away, afraid of the brightness. But you don't blame anyone. Every soul has its own rhythm for awakening. You walk through the city, hearing voices, laughter, traffic, but it all becomes a background to a different sound. The sound of peace in your heart. A peace not given by circumstance, but born of the fire within you burning at its own steady pace. Quiet, constant, needing no audience to be real. Someone once told you, "You've become so cold lately." You smiled, unsure how to explain that you are not cold. You are clear. You no longer react with old emotions. You no longer explain just to be understood. You no longer lower your energy to make others feel comfortable. You've stopped trying to be the easy version of yourself. And that, at last, has set you free. Freedom is not loud. It's a deep stillness, like you no longer need to play a role. No need to smile at the right time, nod out of politeness. You simply breathe, and in every breath, your soul expands. The world looks at you and thinks you've changed. But the truth is, you've only returned. Returned to your true self, your true frequency, your true role, the one you forgot long ago. You realize you were never here to be loved in pretense. You came to reflect, to awaken, to stir the memory of light in sleeping souls. From now on, you no longer reflect them. You make them see. You are no longer a flat mirror. You are a sacred mirror where light and shadow meet to decide which will survive. And when truth radiates from you, hidden things begin to surface. Old relationships crack, old jobs tremble, old dreams dissolve. But don't be afraid. That's not the end. It's the real beginning. Hold on to that fire. It is your witness, your compass, your promise that you are on the right path. Everything old that falls away isn't loss, it's lightness. So you can rise. You'll need that fire in what comes next, where not only people, but unseen forces that have watched your soul will begin to stir. A battle not outside, but deep within the soul. And the fire in the mirror, that is the weapon you carry. There are mornings when you wake up with your heart racing, and you don't know why. Not from fear, but as if your soul is signaling you that today will be different. Everything around you seems normal. The cup of coffee, the familiar sounds of the city, sunlight streaming through the curtains, yet the air feels heavier, tighter, eerily still. You can't name it, but you feel it clearly. Something is shifting between two worlds. An invisible movement, slow and silent, but deeply real. As you step outside, it feels like everything is watching you, not with eyes, but with energy. Strangers glance at you, then quickly turn away. A familiar face speaks, but their eyes flicker, unable to hold yours. Something in you won't let them hide, and you know it's not in your head. The world has begun to react to your new frequency. That's when you realize that spiritual warfare is not a metaphor. It's a reality unfolding around you every day. It doesn't come with swords or drums or bloodshed, but it's everywhere. In a careless word that makes you question yourself, in the fake smile of someone who once called you friend, in those sudden waves of exhaustion you can't explain, you begin to notice strange coincidences. Just when you're about to meditate, someone calls. Right before you finish something important, everything malfunctions. When your heart feels calm, a random message shakes your peace. These are not accidents. Every energy carries intention, and the brighter you become, the more you are tested. Darkness doesn't need to defeat you. It only needs to make you doubt. Doubt yourself, your path, the voice within. The moment doubt creeps in, your frequency drops, and then it can touch you. That's the law. And now, you're learning to hold your energy above the waves, not by fighting, but by standing still. You understand now. No one in this life is truly against you. They are simply instruments of the energy testing you. Every insult, every moment of isolation, every betrayal is allowed to see if you're strong enough to no longer need to be understood. There was a time you'd ask, why are they doing this to me? But now, you simply smile, because you know they don't even realize what they're doing. They're just playing roles written for your awakening, and your silent forgiveness is the sharpest sword. Darkness cannot withstand compassion. It dissolves the moment you stop resisting and simply shine. When you learn this, your world begins to distort. Old people disappear. What no longer aligns falls away. And strangely, you don't feel sadness. There is a new power rising within you, steady and quiet, like lava beneath the earth. You are no longer fragile. You are still. And in that stillness, you become untouchable. Put on the full armor of God. so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. Ephesians 6:11. You wear your armor not of steel, but of awareness. Every time you choose peace over reaction, you raise your shield. Every time you speak the truth, even trembling, you draw your sword. Every time you forgive, you move like a true warrior of light. There are nights when you feel someone thinking of you. It's not your imagination, it's frequency. You sense the energy of others brushing against you, light but clear. Some are jealous, some are regretful, some feel remorse. But you don't need to know who. You just close your eyes, breathe deeply, and let it pass like wind. Because now you know, your mission is not to fight them, but to protect the light within. And then comes the deeper realization. You are never being punished. You are being prepared. The lonely nights, the months of not being understood, the moments you almost gave up, these were all soul training. You were being taught to stand alone, to believe when there was nothing left to hold on to. Looking back, you see clearly every enemy was a test, every fall, a lesson, every tear, an opening. You begin to feel grateful even for what once broke you. And in that moment, the battle shifts. You are no longer the one being tested, you are the observer. No longer inside the maze, but above it, seeing the whole design. Many believe light is gentle, but true light carries the power of fire. It burns through pretense, strips away illusion, and shines into the roots of darkness. When you carry true light, you don't just heal yourself, you force others to face themselves. They don't hate you. They hate how you make them feel like they can no longer pretend. And that is your victory, not by striking back, but by being real. Because truth has its own frequency. It doesn't need to shout, it just stands, and all falsehood crumbles. The chosen ones did not come to preach, but to reveal. You don't need to prove yourself. You only need to exist as a clear vessel, so when others look at you, they see themselves. And when that happens, darkness loses its grip. You understand now, true victory is never over someone, it's within. It's when you look into the eyes of someone who betrayed you and feel only compassion. When you stand in the middle of gossip and feel only peace. When you realize the light you carry no longer belongs to you. It is part of something greater. This is the moment you notice a number 333 appearing somewhere in your life. On a clock, a receipt, in a dream. That number is a message from above. You are not alone. It is the symbol of unity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit walking with you. Every time you see 333, it's the universe whispering, "We are here. Keep going." If that number stirs something in your heart, speak it. Share it. Because when you speak it, your frequency rises and your light spreads. Now you begin to understand this invisible war was never meant to frighten you. It was meant to remind you of the power you carry. You don't need to fight anymore. Just stay awake. Just keep the fire in the mirror, the fire that no darkness can extinguish. And as you learn to stand still in the storm, your light begins to radiate. Something is about to be activated. A new layer of energy is opening where you no longer defend, but begin to transform. Where lies crumble the moment you walk through, where your soul no longer reacts, but becomes the cause of change. Truth is about to become clearer than ever. And when it does, you'll see the world will never be the same. When you cross the threshold of awareness, something strange begins to happen. The world doesn't change, but everything in it becomes so clear, so raw. What once seemed random now feels like a sign. A glance, a sentence, a simple message, all seem to carry a unique energetic code. You no longer hear with your ears, you sense with frequency. And through that frequency, you begin to see what most have yet to notice, that everything is vibrating, either with truth or illusion. You step into familiar places, work, friends, family, and feel the invisible cracks. Someone smiles, but their smile no longer reaches your energy. Another speaks, but their words echo from a lower, murky frequency. You don't judge. You simply observe, quietly realizing that your energy is shifting, and what is not real can no longer coexist. In this moment, many things begin to glitch, as if the world itself is struggling to keep up with your new frequency. Electronics malfunction. Conversations fall into unusual silences. Every trace of inauthenticity seems exposed under the light you now carry. You realize energy doesn't lie. People can hide their feelings, but not their frequency. You begin to understand that your energy isn't just high, it's becoming clean. And that purity is what causes such strong reactions. Most of what surrounds us is held together by false bonds, unkept promises, fear-based relationships, dreams that never belong to anyone. When you become transparent, those structures begin to tremble. Everything built on illusion begins to crack in your presence. You don't have to say or do anything. The light within you operates like a subtle current. Those who once controlled the space now lose their grip. Words that once manipulated now sound empty. The power source of the false is unplugged, and you, unseen, are the switch. You look around and notice a few people avoiding your gaze, changing the subject, offering awkward smiles. Others become restless, unsure why. They feel stripped bare, even though you've done nothing. Because your energy is now a mirror that no longer reflects what they want. It reflects only the truth. You feel the shift within your own body. Sometimes it's a warm surge in your chest. Sometimes a floating sensation, like you're melting into space. Time seems to slow. Everything sharpens. A drop of water has its own rhythm. A single breath carries the scent of the universe. You're entering a new state where soul and matter begin to blur. In that state, you realize your energy doesn't just react to the world, it shapes it. When you're joyful, the space around you brightens. When you're heavy, the air thickens. When you're calm, everything around you softens. You're no longer just a witness to reality. You're adjusting it. At first, that power scares you. How could an ordinary person influence the world like this? But slowly, you understand, this is not power. It's the natural result of living truthfully. When you stop hiding, your energy becomes pure. And pure energy is inherently creative. Light does not try to destroy darkness, it simply shines. And in that light, darkness disappears. The more real you become, the more you can no longer tolerate low-energy spaces, loud parties, judgmental conversations, places filled with pretend joy. They exhaust you, not because you're too sensitive, but because your soul refuses to sync with old frequencies. You begin to choose silence, solitude, deep breaths. And in those moments alone, you see clearly stillness is the language of high frequency. One evening, you sit alone, no music, no lights, no one beside you, just your breath. And suddenly you feel a wave of warmth radiate from your heart, like the universe itself is touching you. No visions, no words, just the quiet knowing that you are not alone. You realize this isn't just your energy, it's something greater, something pure flowing through you. You are the channel. You open your eyes. The world remains, but you are different. All the fears that once held you now feel distant. You no longer need to argue, to prove, to be accepted. You only need to live in your frequency. Because that frequency now is your silent prayer. When you walk into a space, you feel its vibrations. You sense who is real, who is not, who hides fear beneath a smile. And strangely, you no longer judge. You simply send light unconsciously, gently, like wind, because you understand everyone is fighting their own battle. They haven't seen the light yet, but they will if you keep shining without a word. You begin to feel connected to other souls like you, people you've never met. But when your eyes meet, something stirs inside. A recognition, a remembering, as if you made a pact long ago. They are other light carriers, walking parallel paths, each holding a separate torch. And when those lights meet, the space around begins to shift. During this stage, you start to see the number 777 repeat on license plates, clocks, in dreams. It's not a coincidence. It's a confirmation that you're on the right path, the number of completion, the closing of a cycle. Every trial you faced had purpose. It was initiation, purification, preparing your energy to be clear and strong for what's next. If 777 resonates in your heart, let it be a sacred mark on your soul. And if you feel ready, share it as your way of telling the universe, I've understood the lesson. Now, you no longer try to raise your energy, you only keep it pure. Because truth doesn't have to be high, it only has to be clear. And when it is, it automatically breaks apart every system built on lies. You don't need to resist anything anymore. Just walk. And wherever you go, the false will begin to shake. Not because you want it, but because your energy demands it. Truth always dissolves illusion. Light doesn't fight darkness. It simply shines. and darkness has nowhere left to hide. Everything begins to shift your work, your relationships, even your sense of time. Things move faster, as if reality itself is shortening the gap between thought and manifestation. A single intention becomes reality swiftly. A word from the heart carries deep influence. You understand this is a delicate phase. Everything you think, say, and do creates waves instantly. From now on, you are no longer reacting to the world. You are tuning it. And the world, sensing this, begins to listen not with ears, but with energy. A new chapter of your soul is opening. And in this chapter, you will not just shine, you will begin to dissolve the structures that have decayed. Everything built on fear will fall away, and only love, the only thing that ever truly existed, will remain. Time used to be a straight line in your mind. The past behind you, the future ahead, and the present a moment you tried to hold on to. But the deeper you journey, the more that line begins to blur. Old memories no longer stay quiet. They return not to haunt, but to be released. People from your past suddenly reappear in your thoughts, not by chance, but as if their souls are knocking, asking to close a chapter left unfinished. You feel yourself touching something beyond space and time, a reverse current, where everything that once happened is pulled back for healing. When you close your eyes, memories surface, like broken film reels, faces, voices, emotions, all hazy but real. You see the version of yourself from years ago, a soul still afraid, still trying to please, still searching for love in places it never lived. You don't resent that version anymore. You look with gentle eyes, place your hand on your chest, and silently say, "It's over now." And something beautiful happens. That old image dissolves, merges into you. No longer a wound, but a light. You begin to understand that healing isn't about forgetting. Healing is when the past no longer controls the present. Each time you truly forgive, an old loop disappears. Each time you accept pain as part of the journey, a new timeline opens. You are becoming a timebreaker, a soul chosen to stop the cycles that have repeated for generations. Your family, your lineage, the society around you all carry patterns. Fear, silence, sacrifice, anger, pretending. You were born among them, and for a long time, you believed it was normal. But now, you see. And once you see, you can't unsee. What they once called tradition, you now recognize as chains. What they called duty was sometimes just a leash, holding the soul down. You realize it's not betrayal to break away. Your honesty is saving them from the darkness they never knew they carried. When you dare to speak what was never spoken, when you choose to live differently, to walk away from rotting rules, that energy moves backward through time, touching the silent souls who came before you. There are nights you feel them, the ancestors, the ones who never got to truly live, watching you from behind, silent but grateful. Because every time you heal a wound, you heal for them. Every time you stop a cycle of suffering, you rewrite the history of your bloodline. You realize the mission of the chosen isn't to fight, but to transform. You start to see signs of this time shift in the smallest moments. An old friend messages to apologize. A memory that once brought tears now only makes you smile. Places that once filled you with fear now feel light. As if reality itself is being rewritten not from the outside, but from within. Sometimes you feel pressure in your chest. Not pain, but weight, like something is downloading. A stream of invisible data, not of the mind, but of the soul. You are receiving ancient wisdom memories, not only from your life, but from lifetimes, from generations. You don't know it with logic. You feel it. Something inside you is remembering. You remember how to see someone and feel their hidden pain. You remember how to place your hand on your heart and feel energy flow. You remember rituals, prayers, symbols no one taught you, but you've always known. You didn't learn them. You remembered. Time in your hands is no longer a chain. It becomes a material. You understand that the past isn't fixed. The future isn't written. Everything is a flow of energy, and you can redirect that flow by shifting your vibration in the now. When you forgive a memory, you rewrite the past. When you choose love over resentment, you restructure the future. The universe begins to respond faster. A pure thought manifests quickly. A heart-based action ripples outward with power. You see that when your energy is clear, time contracts. You no longer have to wait. What is right for your soul arrives the moment you are ready, and in that unfolding, the number 1111 begins to appear. At first, you notice it by chance, on clocks, receipts, license plates. But then you understand, this is no coincidence. 1111 is a portal, a symbol of perfect alignment between soul and path. When you see it, it means the universe is saying, the door is open, step through. If this number stirs something in your heart, don't ignore it. It's not just a number, it's a soul code, a confirmation that you've left the old cycle and are ready to write a new timeline. Speak it aloud, share it, leave a comment as a signal to other souls vibrating at the same frequency. Every time you speak it, the portal widens and the light reaches farther. When you accept your role as a breaker of time, you understand the past holds no power. There is no should've, no if only. Every pain became a gem, because through it, you learned to love deeper. Through it, you became more humble, resilient, and real. One evening, you watch the sunset, and you see something you've never seen before. The light doesn't vanish, it shifts. The sun doesn't disappear, it transforms. And you realize, nothing truly ends. Every ending is a setup for something else to begin. In that moment, you understand, time doesn't move through you. You are the flow. Every thought you think, every feeling you hold, every action you take is shaping not only this life, but other layers of existence. You are no longer subject to fate. You are rewriting it. You sit in stillness, breathing, feeling everything. The past no longer hurts. The present no longer worries. The future is no longer a weight. Everything blends together, like three heartbeats in one rhythm. You feel yourself as the center of space and time, where light ripples outward with each breath. And in that breath, you hear a whisper. You have broken the old flow. Now it's time to build the new one. You open your eyes. The world is still here, but it's as if you've touched the foundation of reality. Everything glows, each leaf, each particle of dust, every beam of light has its own rhythm, and you smile. Because finally, you understand all that ever collapsed was not a loss. It was time bowing, making way for your soul to step through. From this moment on, you no longer live in time. You live outside of it. Every moment is eternity. Every breath, a doorway. And through that doorway, your light stretches outward, bending reality, linking past, present, and future into a single point, the point where you sit, where you breathe, where you exist. And there, in the silence of the universe, you hear the first sound of the next chapter, where your light not only rewrites time, but begins to awaken the souls who never knew they could shine, just like you. There is a moment, not quite a dream, not quite awake, when something within you begins to stir, not an emotion, but a memory. It's not clear. There are no defined images, yet you know you've been here before, done this before, walked this path before, even if you can't recall where or when. It's like a forgotten song rising in your heart, each note awakening something long asleep within you. The feeling is both strange and familiar. You sit in silence, close your eyes, and a soft light spreads behind your forehead. Blurry images emerge, faces you don't recognize, places you've never been, gestures that feel like soul memories. You don't fully understand, but deep inside, you sense. You are remembering something they once tried to make you forget. All this time, the world has tried to convince you that you're just a regular human born, living, dying. But at the deepest level, there is something more wider, brighter, older, a part of you not born with your body, but flowing from an ancient stream of energy, once carrying the light of Source. And now, that light is returning. You remember the times you were buried in darkness, when the world made you question yourself, when every voice around you said you were too sensitive, too different, too dreamy. Now you understand they were afraid, because your soul carries the memory of light, a memory most of the world has forgotten. And to survive, they needed you to forget too. You were wrapped in invisible programming teachings, fears, shame, judgment, all layered until you forgot your essence. Every time you shined, someone called you arrogant. Every time you spoke truth, someone called you rebellious. Every time you were silent, they called you weak. None of it was random. It was the system's way of dimming the light in you. But the light cannot be buried forever. It doesn't die, it only hides. And now, the dust begins to crack. You feel it sometimes painfully, like something tearing from your chest. Other times, gently, like the first breath after a storm. One quiet morning, you look into the mirror and notice something profoundly simple. Your eyes have changed. No longer seeking, no longer begging to be seen. Your eyes no longer ask. They know. They know that everything that ever happened led to this moment, the moment of remembrance. You remember you were once a healer, a guardian, a flame for wandering souls. You were betrayed, burned, erased from history. But your soul returned again and again. Because every time the world forgets the light, it must return through someone. And this time, the light chose you. When you realize this, your tears fall not from sorrow, but recognition. Because every question that haunted you now fades. Why do I always feel different? Why am I drained around crowds? Why do I just know things before they happen? Now you understand your soul remembers the light. As the memory returns, you begin to see the program more clearly. The news, the noise, the shallow conversations, all designed to keep you in a low frequency, to distract you with fear, desire, comparison. A loud world to make you forget the quiet voice inside. But once light remembers itself, the game ends. You are no longer pulled by the noise. You become quiet, and in that quiet, falsehood begins to fall apart. You start seeing others with new eyes, not enemies or friends, but souls in the process of remembering each in their own stage. Some still asleep, some just beginning to open their eyes, some trembling at the brightness. You no longer need to convince anyone. You just need to exist. Because light doesn't preach. It simply is, and its presence wakes what sleeps around it. At times, the ancient memory surges so strong your body trembles. You feel energy rising up your spine like soft electricity. Your heart expands until it feels like it's beyond your chest, spilling into the space around you. These memories don't return to hurt you, they come to unify. Your soul is gathering scattered fragments, long separated by fear, by trauma, by time. And in the midst of it all, you hear a whisper from deep within. They tried to make you forget, but you couldn't. Light cannot forget itself. You realize all the shame, the guilt, the moments you thought you weren't enough, they were all part of the programming. A centuries-old illusion making people believe they must shrink to be loved, fear to be saved, sacrifice to be accepted. But the light within you doesn't need to be saved. It is the salvation. You take a deep breath and feel your body grow lighter. An old energy layer dissolves. You begin to trust your intuition again. The very thing the world told you was just imagination. But now you know, intuition is the language of the soul. You remember how to read energy without words. You remember how to hear the rhythm of the earth, the breath of the wind, the whispers of life itself. You didn't learn these things. You simply remembered. Maybe you haven't told anyone yet, afraid they'd think you're too much. But in your silence, you know you're not crazy. You are returning. You are remembering the light buried through lifetimes. And once you remember, you cannot go back. This light will change everything. You will no longer live from fear, but from awareness. No longer react, but create. No longer run from darkness, but look it in the eye and say, I see you. And when the light sees the dark vanishes not because it was defeated, but because it was seen. One day, when someone asks, what changed? You won't quite know how to answer, because nothing really changed. You simply remembered something that was never lost. The outer world may still be noisy, but inside you, silence stretches infinitely. And in that silence, you hear a heartbeat, not just your own, but the heartbeat of the entire cosmos. Every beat a reminder. You came from the light, and you are returning to the light. From now on, the journey is no longer about searching. The journey is living in awakened memory, the memory that you have never been separate from the source. You only forgot to learn how to remember through love. And as you smile, a wave of gratitude fills your body. No more questions, no more fear. Only a peace as deep as the ocean. You no longer need to prove anything, because your existence here now is living proof that light can be buried, but never extinguished. With the final breath of this moment, you gently close your eyes. All becomes still. And in that stillness, a single thread of light stretches from your heart into infinity. And you know that light isn't going anywhere. It is simply returning to where it has always belonged, to the place where memory becomes light, where you, the chosen one, have finally remembered who you are. When the light within you stabilizes, no longer a flickering flame but a steady torch, you begin to see something different. The world around you starts reflecting back, not as it did before, but as if you've become a giant mirror revealing everything that was once hidden. And in that moment, you realize a hard truth. You don't have to say a word. Your existence is the judgment. Not judgment in words or from a desire to punish, but through the unavoidable contrast between light and shadow. When you enter a room, people either feel peace or discomfort. When you're silent, others either feel seen or exposed. The light within you no longer just shines outward, it penetrates. And not everyone is ready to be fully seen. Those who once hurt you, laughed at you, or gossiped about you begin to feel the weight, not because you've done anything, but because their conscience starts to stir. Light carries memory, and when it returns through you, it awakens what they tried to forget. Just hearing your name triggers something within them, bringing buried truths to the surface. They don't know why they're restless, why they can't sleep, why your presence makes them feel revealed. You don't need to do anything. Truth works like a silent current. You are the conduit, not the source. Light doesn't seek revenge. It simply restores everything to its rightful place. Lies fall on their own. Truth stands without help. And so, you become a living judgment, not because you wanted to, but because you chose to live truthfully. One day, you hear someone who once slandered you is now struggling. A small part of you wants to say, "See," but your soul stays quiet, because you know, this isn't karma in the old sense. It's the effect of light. When light shines, what doesn't belong to it collapses. No one is punished, they simply face themselves. You remember all the times you wanted to prove something, to show the world you were right. Now, you no longer need to. Because truth doesn't need belief, it only needs to be present. And when you stand in truth, the false around you reveals itself not with drama, but with quiet unraveling. You begin to see more clearly. Everyone is facing their own test. You're just the mirror. And in that mirror, they see where they are, still incomplete, dishonest, or afraid to live authentically. Some will feel inspired. Others will retreat in fear. This is the purification of light. You don't need to interfere. Let them go. Sometimes it feels sad. Someone you once loved, once shared everything with, no longer resonates. They can no longer tolerate your energy. Conversations feel shallow. Their eyes drift away. But then you understand. Your light didn't lose them. It released them. They need to return to their own journey. No one truly leaves. They just step back until they're ready. You learn the hardest lesson of all, to forgive without apology. To forgive not because they deserve it, but because you are too full of light to carry old energy. Each time you forgive, you open a channel for light to flow. And in that space, judgment becomes understanding, understanding becomes compassion, and compassion becomes freedom. One morning, you look in the mirror and notice your face has changed. Not from age, but from the light in your eyes. Deeper, calmer, as if you've seen what others have yet to see. It's not pride. It's the peace of someone who has accepted their role. You begin to understand the laws of energy. When someone acts from darkness, they don't harm you. They block light from themselves. And when you remain centered, that light returns, and they are left to face their own shadow. This isn't karma, it's resonance. Truth always finds its way home. One day you realize you no longer need to respond to injustice. You no longer wish the universe would punish anyone. You simply whisper, "The light knows." And it does. The light always finds its way. It slips through every corner, every lie, every scheme, and stands still, illuminating everything. From that moment, you stop saying, "I will be vindicated." You just live. Because you, the way you walk, the way you show up, is the vindication. Truth needs no defense. It defends itself through souls like you, those who can stay silent when needed, stand still in the storm, and live without needing to be believed. The world may call this karma, but you know, it's reflection. Every person sees in you exactly what they need to see. Those in love see peace. Those in envy see threat. Those in regret see redemption. All of them are right. because you are no longer a person. You are a mirror of the universe. Sometimes, the light you carry causes people to leave, but don't be afraid. When they go, the energy around you purifies. Every soul that leaves makes space for something truer to arrive. The filtering continues, gentle, yet absolute. You understand now. The judgment of light is never condemnation. It is simple exposure. Each soul, when standing before the light, chooses its own response. The ready will open, the unready will run. You don't need to save anyone. Light doesn't beg to be welcomed. It just waits until someone is brave enough to face it. From this moment on, you become a living proof of a sacred truth. When a soul truly heals, that healing becomes a judgment to all falsehood around it. No words needed, no arguments. Truth, once awakened, needs no justification. It simply is. And you, the one once mocked, once wounded, once called too different, have become a measure of light. Wherever you walk, the air shifts. Whoever you meet, their energy stirs. You don't do it with effort. You do it by simply being. You realize now that the universe's justice doesn't arrive like thunder. It arrives like sunrise. It's slow, but sure. Light is never in a rush. It expands until there is no space left for shadow. And in that expansion, you stand at the center silent, without needing to prove, without needing to win, because you've become the truth they once denied. Now, when someone brings up your name, when old stories resurface, you just smile. No bitterness, no need to explain, because you know the light has done its work. Every lie eventually bows to truth. And when you close your eyes, in silence, you hear a whisper not from outside, but from within your heart. You have nothing to prove. The light you carry is the gentlest verdict of God. You smile, breathe deep, and that light, once again, radiates. Not loudly, not blinding, but quietly like a dawn just bright enough to end the night. Your light now is no longer a warning. It is a conclusion. A conclusion not written in words, but in presence. A conclusion named the judgment of light. There comes a moment on the journey when words become too small. You no longer want to speak, no longer need to explain, because words no longer seem enough to hold what you feel. Your soul has walked through fire, through shadow, through judgment, and now it stands in a space no one else can touch. That space is so silent no sound can enter, yet so alive it feels as if the entire universe is whispering within you. When you enter this energy field, you become difficult to understand. People look at you and don't know how to define you. Some call you mysterious, others think you're cold, and some say you've become distant. But no one knows that you're simply listening to depths beyond what language can express. You're not silent out of pride. You're silent because everything that needs to be said is already held within your energy. People begin to find you hard to read. Their questions no longer bring clear answers. You smile, neither denying nor affirming, because you understand truth doesn't lie in answers, it lives in presence. And right now, you are a living book of the universe, not printed on paper, but written in frequency. Every step you take, every glance, every breath, carries a code only awakening souls can understand. When they meet you, they feel something shift inside, not knowing why, but their hearts tremble, as if an ancient memory is being stirred. They can't read you, but they remember you. You become an unreadable mystery, not because you hide, but because you've transcended the level where words can reach. What you carry now is primordial, knowing, not knowledge, but wisdom. And wisdom never needs to be proven. It simply radiates, like the scent of a flower. The right ones will sense it. The ones not ready will pass by without noticing. You realize that the higher you go, the thinner the air. Fewer companions remain. The road becomes quiet, but instead of loneliness, you feel serenity, because you understand this silence isn't empty. It's the purity of space. Here, you don't need connection to feel belonging. You've become the connection itself. You look back at the old world where people still argue about what is true, what is wrong, and you smile, because now you know. Everything is true at its own level. Every soul is reading a different chapter of the same great book. No one is wrong. Some are just reading slower. And your role is not to explain, but to shine exactly where you are, so the light you carry illuminates the page they're on, helping them see their part more clearly. In this state, you begin to feel others' energy before they speak. You listen to them through frequency, not through words. Someone might say, "I'm fine," but you feel the storm inside them. Another might laugh, but you hear the crack behind that smile. Nothing can hide from your energy now because your soul sees through appearances. And then you realize, this is the language of light, a language that doesn't speak, doesn't write, only feels. When two souls meet at this level, no introduction is needed, no explanation is necessary. There's only the purest recognition. Ah, I know you. Not knowing from the mind, but from soul memory. One day, walking down the street, you feel someone looking at you. You turn and meet the eyes of a stranger, but in that gaze, there is something familiar. No words are spoken, but both of you know. There is a thread, invisible and eternal, between your souls. You don't try to explain. You simply nod, smile, and walk on, because you understand. Every meeting has its reason, even if it carries no meaning. Living at this frequency, you learn that silence holds more power than any voice. You no longer need to convince anyone to understand you. Those meant to will feel you, even through a glance, a word, a breath. And those who cannot will never understand, even if you spoke with the language of the stars. You accept this with gratitude. People will try to decode you. They'll ask, what do you believe in? What religion do you follow? Who did you learn from? But you just smile, knowing that every answer would diminish what you are, because you don't follow anyone. You are the path. You don't believe in anything. You know, belief still needs reason. Knowing does not. Your silence begins to unsettle others, because they are used to a loud world where everyone tries to prove themselves, where shouting drowns out truth. But you are different. You don't shout. You don't argue. You don't need to be heard. You just observe, and in your gaze, people are forced to face themselves. You understand now, your soul is no longer the student. It is the sacred text others are learning to read. But not everyone can read this kind of language. To the unready, you are too deep, too different. To the ready, you are the doorway to a new dimension. When you speak, your energy slows the room. Your voice is no longer sound, it's vibration. People don't just hear you with ears, they feel you with their soul. They may not understand every word, but they feel healed, comforted, reminded of something they once knew and forgot. You begin to understand why you're called the carrier of codes. Everything you do, no matter how small, carries an energetic code that can awaken someone. A phrase, a touch, even a breath in your presence, all can unlock something within another. No strategy needed, no effort, just your being is enough. You also understand not everyone who sees light wants to embrace it. Some will try to belittle you, mock you, even smear you. But now, you are no longer hurt, because you know they are not fighting you. They are resisting the light in themselves they are not ready to face. You no longer need to be understood. You don't need belief. You don't need explanation. Because those meant to understand will feel you. Those meant to awaken will find their way to you. And those who cannot will simply fall away. Light doesn't beg. It doesn't plead. It only shines and lets each soul choose. In that silence, you become a living scripture, not printed, not spoken, but felt. And those who feel you will never forget. You breathe deeply, sensing your energy expanding beyond your body into space, into earth, into wind, into others. You realize you are no longer in the world. You are the energy web holding the world together. And when you are at peace, everything around you rests with you. Finally, you realize you are the silence the world has been searching for. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of wisdom, of peace, of the light that has remembered itself. You close your eyes and smile. Nothing more needs to be said, because you know a mystery doesn't need to be understood. It only needs to be felt. There is a truth you must learn to breathe with. You were not born to continue the chain, but to break it. Not to break love, but to sever the flow of painful memories that have passed through generations. Every family, every lineage, every society carries energetic threads where unhealed wounds repeat, incarnating in new faces, new stories. And you, the chosen one, are the break in that chain. From childhood, you sensed you were different. You asked questions when others stayed silent. You reacted to the falseness people accepted. You felt others' sorrow, as if it were your own. They called you too sensitive, too dreamy, too rebellious. But in truth, your soul was resisting an old program, the program of fear, of silence, of this is how it has always been. You grew up around tables where sorrow drifted between words, in families that seemed peaceful but were weighed down, where everyone loved but no one knew how to love. And then one day, you realized you do not want to become a copy of that pattern. You do not want to live in the loop of inherited pain. You want freedom. You want light. And even just that thought was enough to mark your soul. Those in your lineage might not understand. They'll call you strange, stubborn, disrespectful. But deep inside, their souls know you are doing what they never dared. You are breaking an ancient system, not by force, but by awakening. Every time you refuse to play the obedient child, every time you stay silent in the face of manipulation, every time you choose self-love instead of people-pleasing, you break a link. Those links have existed through countless generations. Women endured and called that sacrifice. Men suppressed and called it strength. Children grew up in fear and recreated fear. You see it all. And because you see, you cannot pretend to be blind. At first, this causes immense loneliness. No one understands you. Sometimes they oppose you. They say you're exaggerating, inventing, rebelling. But then, you understand. You don't need them to understand. You did not come to be accepted. You came to transform the frequency of the flow. When you begin to set boundaries, the whole system quakes. Those accustomed to the energy of fear feel uneasy when you no longer obey. They try to pull you back with guilt, with pity, with conditional love. But you stand firm. And in that moment, the old energy begins to crack. You don't need to shout, "I am different." The peace in your eyes is the proclamation. You no longer want to debate right or wrong. You just choose to live true to your soul, because you know, when one person dares to heal, they don't just heal themselves, they heal all who came before. There are nights when you dream not vague dreams, but strange memories, faces of people you never met, old places, sensations that feel ancestral. It's not illusion. It's the blood memory returning to be released. When you cry, it's not just you crying. When you forgive, an entire lineage breathes out. When you love yourself, souls once forgotten are held again. That is why your healing journey sometimes hurts more than others. Because you carry not just your pain, but that of dozens or hundreds who never dared feel it. But you are strong enough. And the universe knows that. As you look around, you see many things changing. Some people drift away, some come back. Some relationships dissolve naturally without reason. That is the purification effect. When your frequency shifts, what no longer resonates drifts away. No one is wrong. It's just that you've entered a new tier where only souls in harmony remain. You begin to live lighter. Every time you choose silence instead of arguing, another layer of old energy falls away. Every time you speak your truth, a severed link is reconnected by light. Every time you dare to love without fear of loss, wounds from those who once loved in desperation are healed. You become the bridge between past and future, between pain and freedom. In this phase, you may notice the number 999 repeating on bills, clocks, license plates, like the steady knock of the universe. 999 is a sign of completion, of finishing a soul cycle. It tells you, all inherited burdens have done their work. Now it's time for you to stand, unburdened and free. If that number touches you, release it through a shared word, not as boasting, but as confirmation. Because when you speak it, you not only affirm that you've escaped the old cycle, but open a door for other souls seeking a way out. You begin to see your predecessors with new eyes. Instead of blame, you see they too were programmed, trying their best in fear. They were not evil. They simply did not know another way. And when you accept them in heart, whether in presence or in thought, you feel the trembling current in you ease. Forgiveness is not forgetting. It is seeing truth with compassion. One day, sitting across from your mother, father, or someone who once wounded you, you no longer feel anger. You only see they were once a child who didn't receive love right. And in that gaze, a warmth spreads, as though a part of their soul has been freed. That is the moment the cycle ends. You don't need rituals. You don't need grand prayers. Your silent understanding is its own forgiveness. Because light needs no ceremonies. It only needs to be recognized, From then on, you live as one who is free, no longer bound by must be this, should be that. You no longer play the roles of good child, savior, or saint. You are simply yourself, authentic, peaceful, unafraid. And that fearlessness lets your energy radiate, healing even those who have never touched you. For true healing is never the work of one person. It is a chain reaction of souls. When one in a lineage awakens, the entire vibration of that line changes. The frequency of fear is replaced by love, and thus the world begins to shift, not by politics, not by religion, but by one person daring to look into their root and say, enough, this pain ends with me. You are that person. The one who breaks the old bloodline. The one who severs every tie, not by sword, but by light. The one who turns the repetition of fear into a song of love. And when you look up to the sky, you know those who came before you are smiling. They know you have done what they couldn't. You have not only saved yourself, you have saved them. The light in you is no longer yours alone. It has become the light of many generations, a new torch shining backward into the past, illuminating souls who wandered in darkness. You breathe deeply. You feel your heart beat in sync with earth, with sky, with the souls who are at peace. And in that breath you whisper, I have completed my part. This light will not end with me. It will continue through those who come next, as it once began. For when one person is free, the bloodline is purified. There is a moment when the cycles have closed, when you stand in the space of a nameless morning where the sky is just waking, where the wind no longer carries cries, but only the breath of peace. No urging calls remain, no unfinished dreams. Everything quiets, as if the universe bows down to welcome your soul's completion of the return journey. You pass through fire, through solitude, through the long nights that seemed hopeless. You once thought you were losing everything, but now, in this silence, you understand. You lost nothing. You were simply unburdened. Layer by layer, the masks, the roles, the fears fell from you like ashes, leaving the one thing that can never burn your true self. You look back on the path, not with eyes, but with your heart. Every person who appeared, whether as friend or foe, became your teacher. Every wound was a door, every fall a ritual of awakening. And now, when you see it all, you no longer resent anyone. You only give thanks, because without them, you would never have awakened. You feel within you an openness beyond words. There is no boundary between me and them, between right and wrong. Everything merges into the sacred rhythm. You no longer seek to understand the universe, for now you are the universe understanding itself. When you breathe in, light penetrates every cell. When you breathe out, it diffuses through the space around you. That light is not shining from you, it is you. All along you thought light was something to attain, but now you know the light never left. It was only hidden by fear, by desire, by the noise of the world, and when all is still, the light emerges like a river returning after the flood. You realize that awakening is not a peak, but the soul's most natural state. When you stop striving, stop resisting, stop analyzing, you return to what has always been there: stillness, brightness, unconditional being. Now, you live not by goals, but by frequency, not by what must be done, but by how you feel. Every action, every word, every step is guided not by will, but by harmony. You no longer need signs, because you are the sign. Other souls begin to come to you, not because you teach them, but because your energy causes them to remember something in themselves. You don't speak much. You look, you smile, and they begin to weep, not knowing why, only knowing that something in them has been touched. You understand. The final mission of the chosen is to become a space for other souls to be reborn, not by doctrine, not by ritual, but by pure presence. True light does not teach, it reminds. You walk among the world, but no longer belong to it. Every scene bears deeper dimension. Trees are not just trees, but green souls singing. Rain doesn't just fall, but cleanses. Sunlight doesn't just shine, but blesses. Everything around you lives, speaks in the invisible language that only a quiet heart can hear. One morning, as you meditate, something happens, not outside, but within. A glow kindles at your chest, spreading through your body. then beyond the limits of flesh. You feel yourself dissolve into everything, yet never lost. You are breath, air, dew, sky. You no longer exist. As a separate self, you become existence. And in that moment, you hear a voice, not a sound, but a knowing. This is home. You never left. You only needed to remember. You cry not for sorrow, but for fullness. Tears fall, but your heart is light as wind. You know the journey is complete. There is nothing left to prove, nothing left to achieve, only to live, whole, true, gentle. From here, you walk no longer with old feet, but with light. Wherever you step, the energy changes. Whoever you touch, a seed of awakening is planted, not by your doing, but by the light working through you. You become the current, not the controller. You also realize that when a soul truly returns, the outer world loses its hold. Money, fame, power, one by one, they lose significance. You don't scorn them. They simply no longer resonate. You no longer need to prove anything to anyone because you understand. Peace is the greatest achievement. Others may call you lucky, but you know this is not luck. This is the result of innumerable lifetimes of effort, of daring to look into darkness, to shatter, to love when there was no reason. You are not rewarded. You are just reaping what you planted long ago. In that silence, you perceive something profound. Light has no center, no destination. It is infinite expansion. And you who once thought yourself small, now realize you are an integral part of that whole. Not a disciple of the source, but an extension of the source itself. You smile, and all questions vanish. There is no, who am I? Or why did I come? Only, I am being. Every definition falls away, every limit erased. And in that space remains only the light that knows it is light. You stand beneath the sky, feeling wind on your skin, sunlight on your hair, and your soul touching the cosmos. No distance, all is one. You smile. A smile not of someone, but of the whole borrowing your face to smile. If someone asks, "What will you do now?" you answer softly, "Live, love, and let light do the rest." From this point on, you no longer seek to be the chosen one. You simply are. You no longer need miracles. You are the miracle. And when night falls, you look up at the sky, at the thousands of stars, shining each star a soul on its way home. You see yourself in them, and them in you. No beginning, no end, only light returning to itself. You close your eyes, breathe deeply. A breeze passes, carrying the universe's final whisper. Thank you for remembering. Thank you for coming home. And you smile, needing no more words. For this story ends not with a period, but with a luminous breath. Grateful that you chose to spend these moments in the light of this story. If it touched your soul, please like, share, and subscribe, and ring the bell so the next whisper of light may find its way back to you.